What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And Saquon Barkley did not sign a contract extension yesterday. The deadline passed. He has not signed his franchise tender. He's not likely to be at training camp. So what does all of this mean for rookie running back, fifth-round draft pick Eric Gray? That's the big question that we're going to answer in today's episode. Discuss Eric Gray, the impact of Saquon holding out on the rookie running back, what it means for him, what it means for the New York Giants, and everything in between. So that's what we're going to dive into on today's episode. But before we do that, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comments section. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Threads at Fireside Giants. Check us out on Facebook as well. But without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And what are your thoughts on Eric Gray as we near training camp?
I am doing great. You know what? As long as the Giants are making good progress, I feel like I'm doing all right. And the truth is that, the Saquon Barkley whole saga finally coming to an end, at least from the perspective of the team. Now, there are some things to consider that maybe Saquon doesn't show up this year. And what do you do in that scenario? Eric Gray's the guy we're going to look at today. Eric Gray's the solution. He's their draft pick. We're going to talk about him, what he offers. If you don't know much about him, you're going to know plenty about him after this episode concludes. But, this is definitely an interesting scenario for the Giants to be in because they put themselves in it. They could have paid Saquon if they wanted to. We're now finding out that it was about a $2 million differential that they failed to compromise on. And, Saquon had the chance to go out and say, I'll take it. I'll take the $22 million. They lowered, I think, the AAV of the yearly salary to about $11.5 million. So they definitely took some money off the yearly salary, but it was the guaranteed money. And ultimately, I feel like right now we're not going to see Saquon for quite a while. He may not show up until week 1 against the Dallas Cowboys, guys. Like, we may not see him. We probably, I'm going to say we're not going to see him for basically all of training camp. Maybe he shows up in preseason. He doesn't need to go to preseason. Like, most of the guys don't really play anyway. Just get a little bit of maybe a touch here, touch there. But Saquon Barkley doesn't need it necessarily. He may show up right before the game and say, all right, coach, let's go. Let's do this thing. And at the end of the day, you kind of ask yourself right now, if he shows up at the last second, are the Giants even going to play him? Are they going to say to themselves, Eric Gray's worked really hard this offseason. He looked good during training camp, looked good during spring or preseason rather. And maybe we want to just give him the job. I mean, that's kind of a crazy thought. I think that obviously Saquon's going to start for the Giants in 2023 if he shows up. But we saw them do it with Kenny Galladay. They were like, he's not really trying that hard. He doesn't fit our scheme. We had the future doesn't include him in it. We're just going to sit him. Totally different scenarios with Kenny Galladay and Saquon Barkley for what it's worth. And I hope to God that Saquon shows up and, sees this as an opportunity to prove the naysayers wrong and prove to himself he can stay healthy. He can maybe get another chance at a long-term deal, put together a strong season. I think that would be a perfect scenario. But talking about Eric Gray, this is a really interesting player, guys. Eric Gray is kind of good, I would say. 1,366 rushing yards last year, 229 receiving yards. Had a couple of touchdowns, 11 touchdowns on the ground, did not score a receiving touchdown, but his numbers skyrocketed last season, had a career best 6.4 yards per carry. So, you're looking at a player as a 6th round pick, or rather 5th round pick. And the truth is that, he's a 3-down back. He has the traits to be, NFL says he's eventually going to be an average starter, but who really knows what he's going to be? They just say they put a grade on him and then the grade indicates this or that. But I bet you they didn't think Cooper Kupp was going to be one of the best receivers in the game, but you didn't think this guy was going to be fantastic or that guy's going to be fantastic. But here we are sitting and saying, I'm drafting Cooper Kupp top 5 in my fantasy league on a yearly basis. So Eric Gray, pretty interesting player. He's not the most athletic of the bunch, had a 63 overall athleticism score at the NFL Combine, which is 21st. He ranked 15th among all running backs, but he's a smart, sturdy player. He has a NFL comparison to Miles Sanders, which is like a Saquon Barkley knockoff, essentially. They actually had him as a 4th round projection. He ended up in the 5th. So a little bit of a value grab there. Nice, decisive, creative runner. Got the size and skill set for the 3-down kind of role at the professional level. Can pass block if you're going to utilize him in play action. Or if you're going to use him out of the shotgun, he can stop some guys, incoming rushers, and he's not afraid to sacrifice his body to get the job done. This is not a guy that's going to break off 40, 50-yard gains like Saquon. Doesn't have that next level speed, but he does have the ability to make that one cut, get upfield, and churn out yards. He can do some good stuff for you, Anthony. So when you're looking at Eric Gray, Why do you think there's some potential there? What makes you think, if Saquon were to hold out and just sit out the season, or the future is Eric Gray's to have, why are you optimistic that he could be the guy for us moving forward?
Well, I'm really optimistic about Eric Gray for numerous reasons. The first of which is one that I'll say we hear the knock on him not being athletic enough pretty often, right? Because he had the low athletic score, didn't run the fastest 40-yard dash time. But one thing that I will say, he led all running backs in the Big 12 last year with 44 carries of 10 plus yards. So maybe he's not the home run hitter that Saquon Barkley is. He's not hitting 40 plus yard runs on a consistent basis, but 10 plus yards at a piece, that's all you really need. Just being a consistent big play gainer, big play rusher from the running back position, that's really important. So Eric Gray, he doesn't have that home run hitting speed. He's not one of the fastest players in the NFL. He's not going to break off 55-yard runs on a consistent basis, but he's going to break off those 10 plus yard runs on a consistent basis, fall forward for extra yardage. He's good at those sorts of things, picking up first downs. And that's really what you need a running back to do in the modern NFL, because the majority of your big time plays, your explosive plays in this passing league, they come through the air. They come from downfield shots, throwing the ball downfield. That's what the Giants added Jalen Hyatt and Darren Waller for. But Eric Gray, he can go out there, he can get 10 yards a pop on a run and just pick up first downs, churn out ugly yards. That's what you need from your running back here. And I will say, you made a really good point earlier, Alex, when you were talking about the Kenny Golladay situation versus the Saquon Barkley situation. Yes, they're two different situations, but Brian Daboll has made it really clear that nothing is given to any of the players on this team. Everything needs to be earned. Can Saquon Barkley earn that starting job without appearing for a single practice throughout the summer in the eyes of Brian Daboll? I'm not so sure. I'm curious to see how Brian Daboll handles this, because you don't want to just hand the job to Saquon when you refuse to hand the job to everybody else just because he's Saquon. I don't know what kind of message that sends. And also, I just want to see how true to that belief Brian Daboll really is. You have to show up to practice. You have to play at practice and practice with the team in order to play in the games. That's the message that he sent to Kadarius Toney. It's the message that he sent to Kenny Golladay. I wonder if he sends that same message to Saquon Barkley. It's going to be interesting to see. But what I will say, regardless of the fact, if Saquon Barkley does play this season, if he sits out this season, no matter what, the fact that Eric Gray is going to have this entire summer to basically be the running back one for this team is huge for him. It's massive for his development. He's going to get run with the starting players, so he'll be running behind the first team offensive line in training camp and preseason. He'll be playing alongside Daniel Jones rather than Tyrod Taylor. These are really important differences for Eric Gray as he tries to get comfortable with this team. He's not getting comfortable with the backups where he's likely to be playing. He's going to be getting comfortable with the starters, and that's huge. Another thing, Mike Kafka has mentioned in an interview, I think it was last month, he didn't say that they were going to revamp the offense, but he said they're making some changes. They added some new talent. They learned what they didn't like to do last year, and they're going to be getting rid of that stuff and adding in new stuff that they do like. This offense is going to change at least a little bit. Again, not a complete overhaul, but there are going to be some changes. Saquon Barkley is not going to be practicing with those changes. He's not going to know those changes until he shows up in September, if he even shows up in September. But who's going to be practicing with those changes? Who's going to know this playbook arguably better than Saquon Barkley by the time we get to the regular season? Eric Gray. I think that's huge for him. So not only is it a question as to whether or not Dable is going to hand the starting job to Saquon without him practicing, it's also just about Eric Gray being more comfortable in the offense. Saquon Barkley can go out there in week one. Yes, he's extremely talented, but what if the Giants want to run a very specific play design that they practiced all summer long, but Saquon Barkley's never ran the play in his life? How do you trust him to go out there and execute? All these other guys have orchestrated this play, rehearsed this play numerous times throughout the summer. Eric Gray knows the play like the back of his hand. Do you trust Saquon Barkley to just go out there because he's really talented and run the play? Or do you have Eric Gray, the guy who's ran the play in practice and done the hard work to get the timing right and know which lane to run into, all of that stuff? You give it to Eric Gray, in my opinion. I think Eric Gray is going to play a lot more during the early portion of the season, whether Saquon Barkley is out there or not, just because he's going to be more familiar with the team at that current time, more familiar with the current playbook and the new plays that are implemented into the playbook. And I think that's a huge advantage for Eric Gray. So, Alex, when you look at it from that perspective and you think about Eric Gray just being present, all the benefits that provides him to, and all the opportunities that's going to give him throughout the training camp period, do you think he's going to have an edge to be on the field, maybe a little bit more than Saquon Barkley, at least for the first few weeks of the season, just because he is more comfortable in the offense?
That's an interesting question. I think that Saquon knows the offense. I think last year, like the majority of the primary stuff has been implemented. Now you're just adding layers to it. And most of the layers are going to be passing oriented. The one thing I will say is this. In the past, we were always hoping for explosive plays from the running back position. We were always we were hoping for Saquon to break off a 40-yard touchdown run. Like that was a majority of our strategy in scoring points. I think now we're going to start to go away from hoping for the big home runs from the running back positions. They'll be a luxury in addition, and more so hoping for the explosive plays from the receiving game. I think that's kind of where the mentality shift is going to happen. Last year, we didn't have the personnel to get explosive on offense in the receiving game. This year we do. And I think that this is where we're going to see a big change in. We're going to be taking more opportunities, taking more risks, throwing the ball downfield more efficiently, and having those big chunk plays come from the passing game instead of hoping that Saquon over almost 400 touches, we had 360 touches last year, hoping that he's going to break out a couple of big runs. And that's unfortunately, that's like not sustainable. You know what I mean? Like asking a running back to do that over and over and over again is not sustainable because all you have to do is stack the box and there's no chance. You know what I mean? There's no chance that you're going to score points or you're going to beat good teams if your entire strategy relies on the running back position, breaking out big runs unless you have a top 5 offensive line in the run game, which the Giants never do. So like you're kind of in a disadvantage in that respect. Now Eric Gray is not that guy. Like Eric Gray is not a home run hitter. He is a, get between the tackles, pick up some extra yards, make a nice first cut, get the first downs, decent hands, good pass blocker. He does everything at about an average level, I would say. He's not above average in any category, really. I think he's about good in every category, which is fine. Like Saquon, bad pass protector, really good, really good explosive playmaker. His yards per carry are really elevated because of that explosiveness. When you look at him across the board, how many times have we seen him get stopped behind the line of scrimmage because he tries to dance too much? I think that's kind of one of Saquon's biggest flaws in the past. I think he's actually corrected that a bit. Last year, we saw him kind of push forward the pile, use that power. And I think it was more so the confidence in his knee that he just didn't have until last season. So I definitely think he kind of got better in that regard, just getting north and south, pushing the pile, getting the extra yards, not dancing too much in the backfield. But Eric Gray, that's not his game. He's not going to dance. He's going to make that one cut and he's going to get north and south. He's going to really run full speed. Problem is he's not the biggest guy in the world. A lot of the concerns about him are that he will get stopped on first impact. He will get stopped if he runs into a defensive lineman, if he runs into a bigger linebacker, he will get stopped right there, dead and done. And that's kind of a concern because in the NFL, you're getting hit early. You know what I mean? You're making first contact around the line of scrimmage. If you can't break that first tackle, you're done for. You're not going to get the production you need. So I wonder if the Giants looked at Eric Gray and say, hey, let's try to improve his strength, his lower body strength, his core strength, and then have him run with more power. That's something that I'd probably be doing if I were the Giants because I think Eric Gray isn't the biggest guy, as I said before. He stands at 5'9" and a half, and he's 207 pounds. So he's got some muscle, certainly, but he's a little shorter. I definitely would like to see him pick up a little bit more. That's kind of the Miles Sanders comparison. On first impact, Miles Sanders usually goes down, but if you can get him into open space, he can make that one cut and get upfield. He can turn out some nice yards for you. He's good vision. And I think that's where Eric Gray can kind of make a nice little impact there. I'd like to see how they can utilize him in the receiving game too. With all this being said, though, I could totally see Matt Breida being cut for what it's worth. I think none of his contract is guaranteed or very minimal. Drafting Eric Gray, you still have Gary Brightwell on a rookie deal, who's actually fine. I actually like Gary Brightwell. I think that more so there's going to be a position battle for when I say I like Gary Brightwell, I'm not liking him as a starter. I'm liking him as more of a last resort piece, maybe a kick returner type of guy, help out on special teams and stuff. But, I'd rather have him than Matt Breida because of he's a rookie contract. He can return kicks. And Matt Breida, you save a penny here or there. I like Breida though. He actually played pretty well for us last year when we asked him to. So, maybe Gary Brightwell is the guy that you would rather cut than Breida. That's an interesting concept. Answer that question, guys, in the YouTube comments. Definitely curious to hear your thoughts on that one, Anthony. But what are you thinking about that? If you had to pick between Breida and Brightwell right now, who are you cutting? Because I think that is a decision the Giants are going to have to make.
It probably is a decision they'll have to make, and I usually side with going with the younger guys. So I want to lean towards Brightwell, but at the same time, Brett is a pretty good back. Like he was a starter a few years ago. He's a quality number two back. The only knock on him is that he doesn't contribute on special teams nearly as well as Gary Brightwell does. Gary Brightwell has been far more involved on the special teams over the past couple of years, and including the fact that he was returning kicks at some point last season. So I think that he probably gets the roster spot over Matt Breida for that reason alone. However, I do think that Breida is the better back, the better runner, and the better receiver out of the backfield. So I'd probably go with Matt Breida. That would be my pick. But at the same time, I will say I really like Eric Gray. I think that he is elusive and he's a good one-cut running back. And I think that if the Giants have to rely on him more, which they probably will, they're going to be okay. I think, Saquon Barkley is going to be missed from the lineup, especially throughout the training camp period as they try and get everyone acclimated. But Eric Gray, I see a lot of potential in him, and I think that he could have a surprisingly good rookie season. But that's my thoughts on it. Alex, any closing thoughts before we wrap here?
My closing thoughts are essentially this. Saquon Barkley is going to sit out. It's going to give opportunities to Eric Gray to get more touches during camp, and ultimately, with the way that things go, like I don't know if Saquon's going to be here beyond this upcoming season. It's possible they tag him again if he has a good year. If he gets injured, they just let him walk. So Eric Gray, like right now, probably profiles as a starter in 2024. Like right now, the Giants are probably thinking like he could be a starter in 2024 or 2025. Like they have him on a rookie deal for 4 years. So, giving him opportunities, letting him get those practice reps is a good thing for him. This is a really good bonus for him to continue to grow, learn the system, become an impact player for us. And, at the end of the day, I am pretty excited to see what he can do. I think he's limited in a lot of ways because he is a 5th round pick, but we've seen a lot of late round picks, notably guys like Ahmad Bradshaw in the past, become essential players for a team. Draft selection is just, it is what it is. Some of these guys you're betting on athletic profile. Eric Gray is not the most athletically gifted player, but you know what? Sometimes it's better to be smarter than athletic. Sometimes you can make the better if you're good vision for running back. How many guys you just see that aren't that athletic? Like Joe Mixon doesn't have top end speed, but he's a tough runner. You know what I mean? Like Zeke, in the prime of his day, like he wasn't the most athletically gifted. He was just tough, man. He would just bruise you until you could not tackle this man. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of running backs, that have specific styles and strategies that they utilize to their advantage. Even remember LeGarrette Blount, dude was just a horse. Dude was just a massive human being. Latavius Murray, definitely not the most athletic, but he was just a big dude and could bulldoze you over. These smaller guys like Darren Sproles, tiny little guy, but he was one of the best running backs in his heyday. So, I do think that there is so much potential for these players to mold themselves, become something unique, become something special. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Eric Gray can't be a great player. What I'm going to say is that these reps are going to help him a lot, get a lot more accustomed to the offense early on before the season begins, which is only a benefit to him and the Giants overall. So I think that's kind of my closing remarks. Hopefully Barkley reports, I guess, to the team within a reasonable amount of time, and you can get kind of introduced to the new stuff that they're adding to the offense, and you can kind of assimilate pretty easily.
Yeah, I think that's the hope. I mean, we want Saquon to be out there. He's definitely a game changer. No matter what you say about Saquon, the value of running backs and everything, he's a game changer. He's arguably the best player on the offensive side of the ball for the Giants. And, he's a true superstar, and he can totally open up your offense in many ways that other running backs simply just can't, including Eric Gray. And, I just said I really like Eric Gray. I think he can be a quality starter, honestly. I think that he can be a 3-down back. He's good in pass protection. He's a good receiver. And like I said, I think he's really elusive, a good one-cut back. Is he a 3-cut back like Saquon? Is he going to hit the home runs from 60 yards out? Probably not, but he's going to get those chunk yardage plays and put the team in position to score touchdowns. So I really like Eric Gray, and he's probably the number one player that I'm keeping an eye on through training camp now, with Saquon Barkley probably inevitably absent. I mean, there's a lot of rookies that I'm going to be keeping an eye on, but I think Eric Gray is going to stand out as number one. I really want to see how he develops, if he's able to ascend into that running back one role, and how he plays in the preseason could be a big deal, because even if Saquon's back in the lineup, Eric Gray might just earn himself a lot of playing time as the second running back, and you might see way more of a rotation in there for the Giants than you have seen over the last 4 years of Saquon Barkley's career. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this all plays out, but I'm excited to watch Eric Gray, and I'm just excited for training camp to kick off next week. And of course, we're going to be updating you on everything training camp related and New York Giants related right here on Fireside Giants. So make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and go ahead and follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, and Facebook, and Threads at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, we will catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.